Hi guys, I'd like to talk about the topic that seems to be dividing a lot of people's opinion, and that is the removal of the master loot system and the switching over to a purely personal loot system. I've read a number of forum posts that are both for and against the master loot system, and I've watched Blizzard's question and answer stream in which they also address this issue. So I would just like to add my thoughts and pick up on some of the points Blizzard made. So to start with, Blizzard did mention that the change to personal loot was not made to stop high-end guilds doing split raids. That is something the team wants to do, but that wasn't the point of this change. So firstly, what are split runs? Well, let's use a very simple example. Say you have a team of 20 raiders. You would take 10 of their main characters into a raid, and take the other 10 raiders into the raid on their alts. You would then clear the raid with this team, and all loot that is obtained would be funneled to the 10 main characters. Those 10 main characters would then swap over to their alts, and the team of alts would swap over to their main characters, and you would then repeat the process. This means you can very quickly gear up a character higher than they technically should be for that moment in time. You could increase the loot passed to the main characters even more by taking fewer main characters into a raid and more alts. This would result in more split runs having to be carried out, but would increase the amount of loot passed to those main characters. The end result of this can mean a few weeks worth of loot has been obtained by these characters. Now I'd say split raiding is mainly used in high-end guilds looking to progress and gear up their characters quickly, in order to make sure that they are as ready as they can be to progress through Mythic Raid content when it is released. It's especially used in guilds looking to push for the world first race. I personally have no issue with any guild doing this, as that is down to them, as those types of players have to invest a considerable amount of time into playing the game to do this, and they are such a small percentage of the player base. I'd say even amongst Mythic Raiders they are a small percentage. You could argue, however, that split raiding overall is somewhat bad for the game, as it creates an unbalanced playing field to those who can't commit the time to carry out a lot of split raids, especially when it comes to guild or world rankings. It also means that characters are more powerful than they should be at that particular time, which means Blizzard have to take this into account when setting the difficulty factor on bosses. This could slow down progress for a number of guilds, as maybe they need to farm more gear in order to overcome certain fights. However, I do agree that Blizzard are not doing this to stop the top tier guilds from split raiding, as those particular guilds have been doing it for years. I do believe they want to level the playing field for all of the other guilds that are now in the position and are doing mythic content. Whether this change will actually get rid of or significantly reduce split raiding, only time will tell. So what is the point of master loot? Well, in my opinion, the whole point of master loot is about getting pieces of loot to the people who would benefit and get the biggest upgrade from it the most, as any good raiding guild will want to progress and kill raid bosses as fast and efficiently as possible, and master loot enables them to do this by giving loot to the people who will help the guild achieve this more quickly, and that does benefit the guild as a whole. Blizzard mentioned that master loot puts players at the mercy of others, often in ways that aren't fair. Now I actually do understand this, as I'm not as naive to think that there are no bad guilds out there, with people in them who do abuse this system. Master loot used to be abused in pugs by people reserving loot, until Blizzard changed that side of raiding by making master loot only available if the group was made up of, I think it's 80% guild members. So maybe those guilds that do abuse the system and do distribute loot in an unfair manner are part of the reason that personal loot is now becoming the standard looting system. However, I would just say that I think bad guilds are a minority, and if loot was given out in an unfair manner, then I don't see how they could survive, as surely you and others would and should just leave. Blizzard also went on to say that trial players in a new guild may not get anything for weeks, because that's the guild policy. Now I do disagree with this statement. Speaking as someone who recently joined a new guild in March, I was placed on a trial period which lasted around 2 weeks, which in the grand scheme of things might only be 2 full raid runs. Now as a trial, I was not expecting loot as a reward for merely being a part of that guild, even though I had cleared the raid a number of times before with my old guild and knew exactly what I was doing. This has been the process of trialling a new player for a guild for a number of years now. Investing loot into a trial player when you're progressing is not efficient, especially when you have limited items to distribute, and you don't fully know if the trial player will work out for either the player or the guild. But this does not mean you won't get loot. It just means you won't be the highest priority if it's between you and a guild raider who needs it. Put yourself in the position of the person who has been a member of the guild for years. Would you want a trial player who has just joined to get the loot that would be an upgrade for you? Of course you wouldn't. Now that does not mean you have not contributed to the kill or that you are not an amazing player. You may be the best player they have ever had. It just means that people don't know you yet. Are you someone who will attend every raid? Or are you someone who will cause problems and leave after a couple of weeks? What I'm trying to say is, you need to find out whether both you and the guild fit well together. I've seen numerous trial players receive loot because no one needed it and they were super happy. And I've also seen numerous trial players receive loot only to then leave the guild and join another one. The fact is, if you pass your trial period and need loot, you will most likely be showered in it and geared up extremely fast. In my opinion, loot should not be the main focus or the main reason for a potential raider wanting to raid at any level. I totally agree that loot is a great thing to receive, especially when it makes you feel more powerful or it's your best in slot. But loot really should be seen more as a tool which allows you and your guild to progress and defeat more difficult content faster, as eventually everyone gets loot. So where do I stand on this topic? And to be honest, I don't really know, as I've no idea how this is going to work out. I have raided in guilds that have only used the personal loot system. And I have raided in guilds that have only used master loot, loot council and DKP systems. And in all of those guilds it was done in a fair way and people got lots of loot, even people on trials, and no one ever complained because it was done fairly. The biggest difference that I did notice though from my personal experience is that guilds that used the master loot system progressed a lot faster than those that only used the personal loot system. And that was because loot could be passed to the players that it would benefit the most. I can still see personal loot causing just as many loot drama issues in certain guilds. And let me give you an example as to how this may happen. Let's say a ring drops on personal loot for you, and it's only a 2% upgrade, but it's an upgrade nonetheless. But it's a 10% upgrade for someone else. You are able to trade it as you have a higher item level equipped. So your guild tell you to trade it to the other person. This in my opinion will cause just as many problems, as a lot of people simply won't want to trade it. This may cause your guild to put a loot policy in place that everybody has to agree to if they wish to raid. I have no doubt that certain add-ons will be made and used to see what can and cannot be traded, and that some guilds will have loot that can be traded, passed to an officer, and they will then distribute the loot as in past expansions. This will just be a lot more time consuming and will potentially cause more problems. The fact is, as of right now, no one really knows how this will work out. I do think that master loot should still be an option for guild raids if that's how they wish to operate. Anyway guys, this is a really interesting topic, and I think there will be a lot of people both pro and against this, but let me know what you think. So thanks for watching, please do comment, like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.